Hello and welcome to this week's track in Austria. First of all, some quick facts. We have 10 turns, we have 3 gears, one at the start finish straight, one after turn 1, and the last one after turn 3. We have the C5, C4, C3 compounds, so the grippiest compounds you can get with Pirelli, which means you're either going to look at a soft to medium, pitting around lap 14, 15, 16, and a soft to hard strategy, though the soft to medium is superior in the beginning of the stint. The soft hard is obviously going to keep the pace much longer. You can also expect some rain, so just make sure you have done some wet laps or have a wet setup. Just like every week, first of all, I'm going to show you my Hotlap, then I'm going to talk about the nuances of this track. After that, I will show you my setup and also explain what you could change for a race setup. So let's go ahead and start talking about the actual Hotlap now. And getting a good exit out of the last corner is very, very important. So stay on this curb right here. Preferably put your right hand side wheel on this white line. And then as you're turning in, get as close to the yellow sausage curb as possible. And as soon as you pass that upshift, if you want to, you can also keep it in fifth for the last corner, but I always tend to go down to fourth gear to give a bit more rotation, then up to fifth and start accelerating. Don't come out too wide, obviously you will get invalidated. Then for turn 1, place your car on this red and white curb right here, then 75 meters. You want to start braking, rapidly downshifting, and you might want to steer in earlier than you might think. Then, as you're approaching the apex, very difficult apex this is, this yellow sausage curb and this red and white curb, if you put your left wheel just right in between that, you're not gonna get invalidated and it doesn't upset your car at all. So try to place the car in between here. And a little tip I have is, obviously this setup has 56 or 55% off throttle differential, and on throttle it has 75, as you can see on the bottom right. What that is, or like, what you can do is, just before you come to that apex, you can see me holding the throttle, or the throttle, just a tiny bit, so the differential that's on throttle gets engaged. That means you don't tend to spin a lot. So it really improves the stability of your car, and I would just tell you to try it out and see if it works for you. If not, then you might just want to start accelerating as soon as you pass the curb. Then try not to get out too wide right here. This is very, very close to an invalidation, so don't let your left hand side wheel go over this yellow sausage curb on the outside. Then as we're coming down to turn 2, flat obviously. Then coming to turn 3, you want to place your car on the red and white curb yet again. You want to, the theme of this track, you want to use as much track as you're allowed to get away with. So always try to find little spaces that you can use to get a better entry into the corner. For turn 3 especially, pretty good, so that you have a later apex, or that you have more time to get the car straight basically. Then for braking markers is like 100 meters, like 10 meters after the 100-meter board. Just brake at the 100-meter board, honestly, since the time you need to actually put down the brakes, it's going to take a little bit. So at the 100-meter board, then downshifting very, very quickly down to second gear. Don't try to downshift into first gear as when you're on the exit or as you're passing the apex. When you upshift to third gear, it may introduce too much rotation and you spin. So don't try to do that. You can also keep it in third if you don't want to risk anything with the upshifting bringing in more rotation. Just keep that in mind. Then clip the apex very nicely as close to the sausage curb as you can get. Then on the exit, very weird exit. So this part of the track is like more uphill than the following part of the track. Use this part of turn 3 exit to get your car straight and get a good acceleration. Get as close to the right and right curb on the outside as well, just to give you a bit more stability, as the bumps on this part of the track are not as noticeable as on this part of the track, on the middle of the track. Also, don't accelerate too early. You want to accelerate as soon as the car is going straight. So if you have a 45-degree angle of steering, obviously you only want to apply, let's say, 50% of the throttle. Get more on the throttle as more the car is straight. That's going to be important for turn 4 as well. Then getting really, really good exit. Second DRS zone, open up the DRS. Then for turn 4, very difficult braking zone. Just again, at the 100-meter board or 10 meters after the 100-meter board, you want to start braking. Very easy to lose the car when you're not using any ABS. You can you don't need to move the front brake bias on this app, especially since you need that rear stability and a little bit of turn, and since 10 front wings still feels kind of understeering. Then, coming back to turn 4, you want to throw the car in very, very hard. As soon as you pass the 50-meter board, you want to start turning in. Don't hold the brakes for too hard, or you're going to lose the rear if you're not using any ABS. You will need to try and find that limit of how hard you can hold the brakes and keep turning in. Then down to third gear, you can clip that curb on the inside quite well. It helps you get a early apex, which means that you can also get the car straight sooner. Then, as you're on the exit, you can see about 90 degrees. Since we're understeering quite a lot, you can go on the throttle a bit more harder. Then, as soon as I notice that the car is straight, I obviously floor the throttle to get a good exit. Then, get as close to that white line on the right here. That actually gains you a bit of time. Then for the double left-hander, very understeery part of the track, you can, I don't know if you can notice in the video, but when you're in-game, you can definitely notice it. On the right-hand side, where the Rolex banners are, there is a part of the wall that is going out of the wall. That is your brake marker and your turning point. Then, first of all, don't start to brake immediately. Stay on the throttle and throw the car in. Then start to brake. Just a tiny bit, just 40 to 45%. Then down to fourth for a little bit more extra rotation. You can also keep it in fifth. I personally found that fourth gives you a bit more rotation. Then get as close to that red and white curb on the inside. Be careful though, if you clip it too much, you're going to spin. It's a really weird curb, which is not really an auto spin curb, but sometimes you can clip the curb and it's completely fine. So just be mindful of that. Get as close to that as possible. Then, as you're around halfway, upshift to fifth, completely follow the throttle. Don't apply too much steering angle. If you apply too much steering angle, you're going to understeer onto the gravel or maybe onto an invalidation right here. So if you notice that the car's understeering, like it's not turning too greatly, then release the steering. That gives you back the grip on the front and you should be able to make the corner. Then for the second part of the double left-hander, you want to place your car on the red and white curb. Again, use as much track as you can get away with to get a better entry into the corner. Just like the double left-hander before. You want to throw the car in with a bit of acceleration. You want to brake a bit early. Again, this time about 30 to 35% of the brakes. Throw the car in again. On the exit, it's quite hard to not understeer. Again, relax the steering. Don't clip the inside red and white curb. This is an auto spin curb, so stay clear of both inside curbs and the double left-handers. Then on the exit, very hard to keep it together right here. Again, place the car on the red and white curb with the middle of your nose. As long as you keep the the right hand side wheel on this red curb, you should be fine. If you decide to cross over early, you're going to spin. So don't try to do that. Follow the curvature of the curb right here to gain a couple more hundreds. Then for the last two corners, very difficult to get right, very understeery in the race, and very, well, it's mostly the place where you get all the warnings. So you can put the car on the curb right here, though I have made some bad experiences. Sometimes the car or the rear just goes on no ABS, so be mindful of that. Try what works best for you. Try going onto the curb and just compare it to not running the curb. Then for the penultimate corner, you want to clip as much curb. Basically, again, the red and white curb. Aim for your nose. Aim with your nose for that, as you can start accelerating very, very early compared to not clipping that curb or not cutting that curb, basically. Then be very careful not to understeer onto the outside of the track. As you can see, cars again using all of the track available to get a better line through the last corner. As I said at the beginning, you want to get as close to that yellow sausage cap as possible. This is a very nice corner. Maybe I should have accelerated a tiny bit early, but then again, down to fourth, up to fifth when you pass the apex, and then hopefully you don't run too wide on this curb right here. This curb really, really sucks in the race as well. You can also, if you get your left hand side wheel on this line of the curb right here, you can also spin the car. So just be mindful of that. Then opening up the DRS as soon as possible, and that is a lap around Austria. Now onto the setup, which can actually be used in a race. I've tried it myself. It's a bit too draggy, so you would need to look at how you can decrease the front wing or the rear wing. You could decrease the front wing, honestly. You can deal with a bit of understeer. The rear wing is a bit crucial for turn 3, so you might just want to decrease it by 1, maybe, if you feel confident in the car. Then transmission 75-55. As the more you get towards the used softs, you can increase the on-throttle diff and the MFD. If you feel like you need that extra stability, just be mindful to change that back when you're coming to the double left-hander. Then suspension geometry, right in the middle, then left. You can decrease the rear camber all the way to the left if you want to have a bit more understeer, but a bit of a stable car, especially helpful for turn 1. If you put the rear camber to the right, you get a bit more turning at the cost of stability. So you can play with the rear camber to either make the car more stable and understeer, or more oversteery and less stable. Then suspension, very nice suspension settings right here, 1, 1, 1, 3, 2, 6. If you feel like you need a bit more rear turning, increase the rear anti-roll bar. If you feel like that's a bit too much, then decrease it to 2. Front right height, rear right height, you can also have that at 2.5 if you decide to run 10.5 wing. Brakes, obviously 100 for the brake bias. You want to keep it at 58 or 57. You can decrease it down to 56, 55 for turn 3 to get less braking distance. Then tires, all the way deflated on the left, right. You need to put up the front pressures though to make the softs last, to make your car not too understeery for the race. And yeah, that's the setup basically. I hope you enjoyed the track guide and that you have learned something. I'm Fraser, and I hope we will see each other on the racetrack.